What's going on, folks? Coach Kevin here, doing a quick video analysis of one of my young athletes from his max velocity sprinting session today. So we are looking at good upright sprinting mechanics. This young man is a sophomore in high school. He's been with me for about a year now, and he's done a great job of really instilling some of the things that we want to see. So even though we're talking about max velocity today, our first month of training and a lot of what we did over the first year was just how to accelerate appropriately, right? How to push against the ground and advance the postures into these upright positions, right? We can't necessarily tell a kid how to run upright if they can't get there through their drive phase and through their acceleration phase. So he's done a really good job of learning how to put himself into these positions through his drive phase. And that is what allows him to hit some of these postures and positions that we see today. We will see some mostly good, I think, and some things that we can work on just in my mind, and we'll point them all out. So let's have some fun with this. So coming into this, we're starting off at full support. This is a position we will talk about as we go, but let's go ahead and zoom in and let's get into the first position I want to look at as we're analyzing his sprint. So this is toe off, right? So looking at toe off, as that foot leaves the ground, we might have a frame ahead of time here, but not a problem. We're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at front hip. How high is his front hip getting? We're going to look at back hip. How far is his back hip getting? And we're also going to look at his arm sum. So what we want to see here with good upright sprinting is really good posture, right? And posture is one of those funny things. It's like, oh, they're standing up tall. They're looking forward. Good posture. Not necessarily when we're talking about sprinting, right? We need to look at, yes, the head and the spine, the head relation to the spine, but also the pelvis in relation to the spine. And what does that look like, right? And what we can see from him is that he has this nice flat back. He looks really good here, right? A lot of times what we see is that the athlete continues to work against the ground, and then their pelvis, they kind of got this butt out position. And what we'll see is that the hip travels really far behind them. Well, with Logan here, who's been with me for a little while, we can see that this hip isn't more than 20 degrees behind him. Now, my lines may not be perfect here, so there's going to be some give and some take, but at toe off, maybe even a little bit further back, like I said, what we should see is about 10 degrees of hip extension, right? So when we're getting off that ground, we should see 10, 15 degrees of hip extension. That's perfect, right? Because if the pelvis is in a good position, the hip really doesn't move that far behind us. You can try it on the ground. Lay on the ground and see how far you can pick your hip up without letting your lumbar spine or your low back flex at all. Really hard to do. I can almost imagine if I watched you do it, you're going to be extending at the low back. It's almost impossible not to do, right? So once he gets into flight phase, so that's really good. At toe off, we can see he's got, that 10 to 20 degrees of hip extension. Perfect. Exactly what we want to see, right? So he's about 15 degrees here. Again, lines might not be perfect. What we can see here is that knee, if I make a straight line here, is at about 80 degrees, 82 degrees of hip flexion on the front side, right? So how high is this front knee coming? That's perfect, right? We want to see anywhere between 80 and 90 degrees. Anything over 90, big problem, right? That hip's just going to kind of get turned off. We're not going to be able to put the foot back into the ground. Anything below 80 degrees, I think we're not going to be able to put the foot into the ground with as much force. So here he's in a really solid position. We can see that his arms are nice and relaxed and opening up. His left arm is closed on the front, just like his right arm is closed, right? His right knee is closed, and his right arm is open on the back, just like his back or left leg is open, right? So arms have to coordinate with legs. Front knee closed, front arm closed, right? Back arm open, back leg open. So really good positions here. Let's go ahead and get into flight phase. So now he's in flight. At this point now, what we're going to see is a scissoring action where this heel starts to move forward and up towards the hip. A lot of times we see it move backwards and continue to move up in this big cyclic action. Not a good place to be, right? And that's a product of that lower robotic spine or that butt out position that we just talked about, right? So at this point, what we're going to see is that this foot starts to move backwards as this foot starts to move forward. And that's that scissoring action that we see, right? What we should see here is about 20 degrees of hip extension on the backside. Boom. Very good. My line's not perfect, but I think it is a really good spot. He's in a nice tall posture, and this front leg is not opening up more than 90 degrees. It's going to open up some, but we shouldn't see some coaches coach like those B skips, and these lines are awful, and kind of teach this pawing action. We want to avoid that to some extent, right? We don't want that foot to continue to travel forward and open up and reach out in front of us and be pulling back. Once this lever, we're going to call this lever here the hammer. Once this thing gets up to 90 degrees like we saw with toe up, we're trying to put that sucker in the ground, and this low leg shank is where we recycle energy at, all right? So everything looks really solid here. Really happy with what I'm seeing here. We're moving forward. Now we start to see things scissoring over, and next position we're going to look at is we can look at contact. Boom, that's contact. What we see is knees together. Very good, right? But we're going to move forward a little bit more into full support. And at full support, what I'm looking for out of my athletes, I can make my line a little bit better, going through the shoulder some. What I'm looking for is that this heel is at the butt and the knee is in front, the advancing knee is in front of the stance leg knee. And it creates this figure four kind of deal here, right? So we got this nice tight heel to the butt. The knee is in front. We know that he's cycling over that knee really well. And he's going to continue to be able to, because he's in good posture, put those feet down into the ground without leaving anything behind him, right? So really good position here. This is full support or figure four, exactly what I want to see. Arms are extended and long next to the hips, putting the feet down. Things are starting to open up on the front or in the back, and things are tight in the front, and he's stepping over, got great front side mechanics because there's not a lot of backside mechanics. All right, so I'm going to kind of kill this video there. I can see I'm getting long on my time here, but I really wanted to point out some of these things. Posture matters. Posture is one of the biggest things. After we can set posture, arm action and leg action become a little bit easier to teach, right? We can see with Logan here, he's doing a very good job of pushing himself upright. We can't see his advancement to upright. That might have to be another video for another day. But he's pushed himself into his upright position. His hips are set into his good place, and now his legs can work around his hip really well, right? And what happens is, because his hips are continue to point forward, and there's going to be some oscillations through the hip we want, right? But we don't want to see huge lordotic spines. But because those hips are continue to be pointing forward, as this leg moves back behind his body, he's going to be able to get this really big stretch reflex on the front of his hip. That stretch reflex is going to tell that knee, hey, come back. I need you coming back forward. And it's going to happen fast, way faster than we can make it happen consciously. So we have to make sure that we're in the right position so that we use the muscles as rubber bands, right? And we allow those rubber bands to work without us wasting the energy of trying to pick the knees up, right? We keep posture, stretch reflexes happen. Those reflexes make running free, right? A little bit more economic, right? So everything I think in this video looked really solid. I think there are a few things that he might be able to do because left versus right, whenever I look at it a little bit further, left knee versus right knee have some differences. I think there's some things that he can do for T-spine mobility and maybe even shoulder mobility that will allow him to kind of free up range of motion up top that, again, doesn't constrict range of motion down low. All right, so awesome stuff out of you today, bud. I hope this video helps anybody else. If anybody wants to reach out and ask questions or leave comments, feel free. I'm always up to discuss some of these things or help as much as I can, help you to understand. I hope I didn't make this too complex. And I know it's a long one, but I hope you got to this point because it's some solid stuff. Y'all have a great weekend.